Actor Paul Walker, starring in the Fast and Furious films, dying in a car crash. His fellow actors now paying tribute.
When Paul Walker passed, the world mourned a legend. But what lay hidden in his secret garage shocked even close friends. Inside were million-dollar hypercars, rare relics, and mysterious items that sparked wild theories.
What are you smiling about? Dude, I almost had you.
What was he hiding, and why? The discoveries raised more questions than answers. Stay tuned, because this story isn't just about cars. It's about secrets, legacy, and the man behind the wheel. The mythical garage unlocked. The day Paul Walker died, fans across the globe were heartbroken. But for those closest to him, another emotional moment came days later, unlocking the doors to his hidden garage. This wasn't just any storage unit. It was a large, low-key warehouse tucked away in Valencia, California. Inside, they discovered more than just vehicles. They found a deeply personal space, almost like a museum that Paul never meant to display. Some called it the Vault, a fitting name considering its secrecy and value. Paul never flaunted it. No social media posts, no interviews bragging about his cars. It was his escape, a sanctuary far from cameras and red carpets. Most fans had no idea the extent of what he had collected. What made this garage truly special was the mix. Over 30 cars, and not just showpieces, but rare machines in top condition. From American muscle to European exotics and Japanese imports, it was clear this wasn't built for status. It was built by passion. Paul knew these machines inside and out. He didn't just own them, he understood them. Unlike other celebrities with garages designed by decorators, Paul's space had tools, manuals, spare parts, and handwritten notes. It was raw and real, like a living workspace frozen in time. Friends who visited described it as sacred, almost like stepping into someone's mind. Nothing flashy, just function, focus, and fire for the road. What's even more striking is that this place remained unknown to most people during his lifetime. He didn't need validation. There were no tours, no invites, no press coverage. Only a tight circle of friends and family knew what lived behind those walls. And that silence made the eventual reveal even more stunning. The garage was co-managed with Roger Rodas, Paul's close friend and business partner. Together, they ran Always Evolving, a performance shop known in elite car circles. After their tragic accident, Paul's family took responsibility for handling the space. His father, Paul Walker Sr., and his brothers entered with heavy hearts. What they saw went beyond expectations. At first, there was silence. Rows of gleaming cars, each with a story. Some had personal touches, custom builds, rare license plates, stickers from races. Others were untouched classics. Each car reflected a moment, a memory, or a mission Paul cared about. Paul wasn't just collecting for fun. He had a deep appreciation for performance, craftsmanship, and history. He owned one of only a handful of BMW M1s left in the world. He had multiple Nissan Skylines, favorites from Fast and Furious and real-life racing. He even had vintage Mustangs, Porsche 911s, and other gems that most collectors dream of. But the biggest surprise wasn't the cars, it was how intentional everything felt. Nothing in the garage seemed random. There were notes next to certain engines, blueprints pinned to walls, and carefully arranged parts for future projects. It felt like Paul had plans he never got to finish. Some fans wonder, was he preparing for a new racing team? A car documentary? Maybe something even deeper? Even though the space was massive, it didn't feel overwhelming. Every inch was used with care. The lighting was simple. The layout was tight. There were no display stands or velvet ropes. Just concrete floors, rolling toolboxes, and tire marks on the ground. Signs that these cars were driven, not just admired. One new insight that adds depth is Paul's quiet role in helping design performance modifications. He wasn't just buying fast cars, he was involved in tuning and engineering. Some cars in the garage had prototype parts and rare configurations that suggested he was testing concepts for the track. This shows he may have been more than just a car lover, possibly an uncredited innovator in racing tech. Another surprising discovery: charity involvement tied to some vehicles. Several were linked to fundraisers or gifted to causes he supported. Paul's humanitarian work, especially with Reach Out Worldwide, was always important to him. His garage hinted at how he combined his two passions, cars and giving back, without ever seeking credit. These personal links gave fans a whole new appreciation for the man behind the wheel. Experts who eventually assessed the collection were stunned. They called it one of the most curated and authentic celebrity garages ever found. Not because it was the biggest, but because it told a story. Every choice, every corner, felt like it carried meaning. It wasn't about wealth, it was about identity. While many celebrities lease or rotate cars for attention, Paul held on to his. Some hadn't been seen in public for over a decade. This wasn't a trend. It was a lifetime of taste, patience, and precision. That's what made it so powerful to see. The real takeaway? Paul Walker wasn't just acting in Fast and Furious. He was living it in his own way. Quietly, purposefully, and with unmatched sincerity. And while his movies showed us speed, his garage revealed something more: soul. But this was only the beginning. The true shock came when they started looking closer, because tucked between the shiny exteriors and revving engines were cars that almost no one knew existed. This wasn't just storage. It was Paul Walker's sanctuary, loaded with rare cars, mystery builds, and personal touches no one expected. Cars you've never heard of. Paul Walker's garage wasn't just a collection, it was a vault of rare power. Most fans knew he loved fast cars, but few realized how deep that love went. This wasn't about flash or fame. It was about machines that most collectors can only dream of. Hidden behind those doors were cars that could fill a museum and still surprise the experts. One of the biggest eye-openers was the BMW M1, a car so rare only 453 were ever made. Built in the late 70s and early 80s, it was BMW's first mid-engine sports car. Today, it's worth over $500,000. Paul's version looked untouched, with everything factory correct. Some say he had a special respect for German engineering and precision. Next was the Celine S7, a low-production American hypercar built to compete with European giants. It's aggressive, loud, and not street-legal in many places. Owning one signals serious intent, not just interest. People close to Paul say he might have been planning to build a private racetrack. The Celine would have made perfect sense for that kind of dream. Of course, the Nissan Skyline R34 GT-R was present, and not just one. Reports say Paul owned at least 7, with some imported directly from Japan under special legal exceptions. These Skylines weren't just fan favorites, they were machines he raced and respected. One of them was used in Fast and Furious 4, giving it movie and personal value. Several had modified engines and custom builds kept off the record. The Toyota Supra Mk4 was another icon in the garage. Known for its role in the first Fast and Furious movie, the Orange Beast lived on in Paul's private space. This wasn't just for show, It was reportedly tuned to over 1,000 horsepower. Paul loved performance, and the Supra was the perfect platform to push limits. Many fans still consider it the holy grail of tuner culture. Another standout was the 2005 Ford GT, a modern take on an American legend. This version mixed classic styling with updated performance, and Paul's had reported custom upgrades. Only a few were made, and each one had serious collector status. His model stood out with unique wheels and a modified exhaust system. Again, this showed how his taste went beyond just owning the latest. It was about building something personal. The walls of the garage also held several custom-built Porsche 911s and vintage Chevys. While the Porsche Carrera GT, his final ride, wasn't among them, Paul had several earlier 911 variants, some with race-style mods. Each one had specific parts, tools, and setups organized nearby. His Chevys were classics too: Camaro SS, Nova, and Bel Airs, restored and upgraded. These cars showed his appreciation for both speed and history. Insiders revealed even more wild details. One mechanic said some engines had setups, like NASA, with advanced tuning software and rare parts. Some builds were so complex, they weren't even street legal. A few cars had secret mods that weren't documented. Only Paul knew their full potential. This showed how hands-on he really was, always chasing new ideas under the hood. A new storyline that's never been confirmed, but widely rumored, is that Paul was in early talks with Nissan before his death. He wanted to help develop a limited-run Skyline tribute, blending our 34 design with modern tech. Several business associates hinted at early meetings, sketches, and plans. Some say he even bought extra parts to test builds. While the project never launched, it shows how involved he was in more than just collecting. He was thinking of long-term impact. What made this garage different wasn't just the value of the cars, it was the meaning behind each one. These weren't cars bought for status. They were part of a bigger vision. Every detail, upgrade, and placement told a story about who Paul was and what he cared about. And this made the next chapter in the garage discovery even more emotional, not just about engines, but about memories left behind. Personal artifacts that left fans speechless. People thought of high-end imports, muscle cars, and turbocharged legends from the Fast and the Furious when they thought of Paul Walker's garage. A different story, though, lay beneath the roar of engines and shiny hoods. Very few people ever saw it. In the middle of the tool cabinets and engine parts were the pieces of a man whose true loves went beyond speed. There were no big, flashy prizes like gold statues or movie posters in frames. That being said, the space told a more quiet story. There were so many old driving gloves in the drawers that the leather was cracked. Custom racing helmets were stacked in the corners. Each one was scratched and marked by use. Paul's thoughts behind the scenes could be seen in his worn-out Fast and Furious scripts, some of which were dog-eared and covered in handwritten notes. And, hidden away, dozens of checks that had been tied to merchandise deals and charity appearances were just gathering dust. Even though he had money, it was never his main goal. It was more important to give back. The walls, not the cars, were one of the most interesting things about the garage. Instead of pictures of famous people or memories from the red carpet, they were lined with framed pictures from disaster zones. Paul wasn't a movie star in them. He was a teammate who helped rebuild villages hit by tsunamis, brought supplies to areas hit by earthquakes, and comforted families in towns that had been destroyed by fire. There is no news or headlines, just action. These weren't pictures taken to get famous. They showed what was in his heart. At the center of this life was Reach Out Worldwide, ROWW, the organization Paul started to help people after disasters. A tough off-road response vehicle marked Disaster Response Unit was found in the back of the garage. It was one of the most important tools there. It wasn't just for looks. It was fully stocked with fuel containers, medical kits, and emergency radios. It had actually been used to save lives. It had scratches and was muddy in some places, but it was ready to be used. Paul didn't just work on cars in the garage. It was also where he planned missions and gave orders for helping other people. Paul's story got more complicated when rumors spread about a strange notebook. In what his close friends called a dream log, he was said to have drawn plans for future car projects, lists of places he wanted to visit, and very personal letters to his daughter Meadow. People never officially said that the notebook existed, but fans held on to the idea. More than any movie role, the idea of Paul writing down his dreams in quiet times spoke to me. It turned the attention on the man himself and made him seem more like a person instead of a star. Hard drives found in the garage made things even stranger. Friends and family talked about hours of raw, behind-the-scenes video from the Fast and Furious sets. There were prank videos, moments that weren't on the script, and scenes where Paul and his co-stars could not stop laughing. Later, some of the footage was used in tribute videos, which gave fans a rare look at Paul Walker as he really was: silly, warm, and real. These clips were not staged or polished. They didn't show the actor on screen, but the man behind the wheel. But what was found in one of his own cars may have been the most heartbreaking. A small toy car that was still sealed in its original box was sitting on the dashboard. People who knew him well said that Meadow had given it to him when she was a little girl. Paul had not touched it in years. Even though it was only a few dollars, that tiny toy was worth more to me than any expensive car in the garage. It was an unspoken sign of a dad's love and a reminder of what was important to him. More hidden treasures were kept in boxes with names on them. Thank you letters written by kids he met at charity events, badges for giving blood, and rescue team patches from missions around the world. Some bags had names of disasters written on them, like earthquake relief in Haiti, wildfire recovery in California, and flood zones in Southeast Asia. These weren't things to collect. They were dirty and worn from being used in the field. Each thing had a story about someone who came through when everyone else did not. Then there was a digital folder that gave hints about Paul's next big passion project, which almost no one saw coming. He wanted to direct a documentary, and there were early drafts of the plans inside. The story wasn't about Hollywood. In Brazil, there are street racing scenes. In Japan, there are underground car clubs. And in South Africa, people build their own cars. Paul loved machines just as much as he did and wanted to listen to and share the stories of other people who loved them too. It was important to him to show the builders, dreamers, weekend tuners, and late-night racers who lived for the road. Before he died, the project never got off the ground, but the notes, outlines, and rough footage that were left behind showed that he wanted to give back to the community that helped shape him. Everything changed because of these results. Fans of Paul, who only knew him as Brian O'Connor from Fast and Furious, saw him in a whole new way. He was more than just a movie star or a car collector. He was a father, a rescuer, a giver, and a quiet visionary. It wasn't a shrine to ego in the garage. There was love, purpose, and kindness in that space all the time. The internet went crazy when people talked about these discoveries on forums, social media, and fan sites. People who had met Paul told personal stories about how he had helped them, said nice things, or taken time for pictures without making it public. Others watched his movies again, but this time with fresh eyes, knowing that there was more to them than just action. Every new fact about the man revealed gave them more to think about than they already knew. At first, being interested in a garage full of rare cars turned into something much deeper. It turned into a trip into Paul Walker's heart. The more fans looked, the more they realized that the most valuable things in that garage weren't under the car. They were hidden in drawers, stuck to walls, saved in files, and carried quietly. What about the rumors about what might still be hidden and waiting to be found? Those are only just beginning. Paul Walker's death sparked wild theories, hidden wills, illegal imports, and last-minute swaps that still stirred debates online. Rumors, secrets, and theories that won't go away. One of the longest-running rumors about Paul Walker's garage involves his imported Japanese cars. Some fans believe he used VIN swaps to legally register vehicles that weren't allowed on U.S. roads. The theory centers around his collection of Nissan Skylines, models that weren't officially approved for import. According to online car forums, Paul was aware of legal loopholes and may have used them to get his dream cars stateside. While nothing has ever been confirmed, the lack of detailed public records keeps the speculation alive. The lawsuit filed by Meadow Walker after Paul's death added fuel to a different theory. She sued Porsche, claiming the Carrera GT in which he died was unsafe and had multiple design flaws. But another twist surfaced. Some claimed Paul had concerns about that car long before the accident. Reports suggest he was exploring deals with other manufacturers and may have even warned close friends about the Porsche's raw handling. That raised questions. Did he truly trust the car, or was he just being polite by riding in it? Then there's the final ride theory, which questions whether Paul was supposed to be in the car that day at all. Online detectives believe another car was planned for the test run. But mechanical problems forced a last-minute change. According to this theory, Paul and Roger Rodas swerved into the Carrera GT unexpectedly. Supporters say this detail changes how we view the accident. Was it fate or a tragic twist of timing? It remains one of the most emotional threads in the fan community. Another rumor says Paul left handwritten notes and instructions about what to do with his garage if something ever happened to him. Some believe these were more than just ideas. They were specific directions for selling or donating certain vehicles. It's claimed that his brother Cody followed those notes and helped turn parts of the garage into a fundraising tool for Reach Out worldwide. Several rare cars were sold after his passing, and the proceeds went to charity. While no official will with those instructions has been made public, the moves made afterward seemed carefully planned. One fan theory insists Paul was developing a car-themed documentary. They believe the gear, cameras, and digital files in the garage were meant for this secret project. The idea was to explore global car culture, with Paul traveling to meet mechanics, racers, and custom builders. Though no full script or footage has been released, some clips of Paul working behind the camera have surfaced. Supporters of this theory say the garage was meant to be both a studio and a museum of his passion. A more recent theory involves a private car vault that was allegedly rented under a different name. According to this rumor, Paul kept ultra-rare cars off-site, away from the spotlight. Fans point to photos of models that never appeared in his public collection. Some suggest these were investment vehicles, while others believe they held personal value. No hard proof has been found, but the idea adds another layer of mystery to what was already an impressive collection. Another twist emerged from auction records. Some vehicles tied to Paul appeared under different sellers' names, leading fans to wonder if he was quietly helping friends build collections. These cars had signatures, notes, or tuning specs that matched Paul's known preferences. It's possible he shared vehicles with others while staying under the radar. These auction entries added new questions about how large his real footprint in the car world was. To some, it showed that Paul wasn't just collecting, he was building a network. A lesser-known theory says Paul had a plan to build a public car museum tied to education. He reportedly wanted to use the garage to inspire kids, teaching them about engines, mechanics, and even charity work. Some say the idea was pitched to friends before his death, but never moved forward. Sketches, models, and mock-ups of exhibit-style car displays were found in digital files. Though unfinished, the concept reflected how deeply Paul wanted to connect cars with a purpose. What makes these rumors stick is how believable they seem. Paul Walker wasn't just a movie star, he lived and breathed the car culture. Every theory, whether wild or grounded, taps into the idea that he was always building towards something more. These stories, confirmed or not, keep fans engaged and curious. They've turned Paul's garage into something almost mythical, a space full of machines, memories, and maybe still hidden truths. As time passes, new stories continue to surface. Items appear in auctions, photos are leaked, and fan theories keep evolving. Whether these secrets are ever confirmed doesn't seem to matter anymore. What matters is the legend they've helped build. And for many, Paul Walker's garage has become more than a collection. It's a symbol of a life that refused to be ordinary. What they found wasn't just horsepower, it was the heartbeat of a man who lived fast but loved even deeper. The legacy he left behind. Paul Walker's garage didn't go quiet or become unremarkable after he died. It turned into something much more important than just a personal collection of cars. Many of Paul's favorite cars, including his famous Nissan Skylines, Toyota Supras, and classic muscle cars, were eventually sold at auction, but not to make money. The money went straight to charity, which shows how generous Paul was. His garage became a strong representation of a life driven by speed and kindness. Paul's cars were the stars of car shows all over the country. But now, people didn't just admire them for how well they worked or how well they were designed. They also had emotional value. Fans thought of the driver every time the engine revved or the hood was polished. That driver mixed adrenaline and heart. People came out not only to see the cars, but also to get closer to Paul. His collection had turned into a memorial that moved around the world. Cody Walker, Paul's younger brother, took on the job of remembering this. Because it was his passion and purpose, he helped start Fuel Fest, a global car event that combines high-octane fun with good causes. Fuel Fest is more than just a party for car culture. It's Paul's way of carrying out his plan to use the car world for good. Some of Paul's real cars show up at these festivals, giving fans a unique chance to see and interact with parts of his life. Cody isn't thinking about the past. He's thinking about the present. He's making sure Paul's love for people and cars never stops. Paul started the nonprofit group Reach Out Worldwide, Arabu, which is still very strong. The money from the auctioned cars didn't just disappear. It was used to fund relief efforts all over the world. Arabu's work has helped people who have been through earthquakes, hurricanes, wildfires, and other disasters. What began as a dream to help people in Paul's garage grew into a large-scale movement. People now remember even his off-road disaster response vehicles, which he used to store in the corner of his garage, as tools of hope and recovery. Fans all over the world have also come up with their own ways to keep the garage spirit alive. A lot of people started to copy Paul's workspaces, right down to the pegboards, tool arrangements, and lighting, and post them on Instagram, YouTube, and other social media sites. Others made tribute cars that were exact copies of his most famous rides, down to the paint job. Players still design cars that look like Paul's in racing games and digital car simulators, passing on his influence to younger people who may not have seen Fast and Furious in theaters, but know who he was. Paul's garage wasn't just a place to work on cars, it was a safety zone. People who knew him well say it was his escape, a spot where he wasn't being watched by cameras or getting ready for red carpets. He wasn't a famous person in that garage. He was just a man who worked on engines, drew pictures of his ideas, and found peace in the sound of machines. The private and quiet times he spent there say more about him than any movie role ever could. One part of Paul's influence that is often forgotten is how he sparked new interests in young mechanics and builders. Auto shops and trade schools have seen a noticeable rise in students who are interested in cars because of Paul's hands-on approach. He wasn't just a fast driver, he knew how the cars worked, and, more importantly, he respected the craft. His garage showed that turning wrenches was more than just a skill, it was also an art. Following Paul's example of being real and skilled made a lot of teens who would have otherwise been on their phones pick up tools instead. Many Hollywood stars collect cars just for fun, but Paul's love for his cars was very personal. Besides bragging rights, he didn't collect. He didn't just polish and park his cars. He drove, tested, and sometimes took them apart to make them run better. Every car had a story, a reason for being there, and even a little personality. Paul gave some of his cars names and made changes to others. He treated each one as a personal project. His garage wasn't a showroom, it was a place where he worked on making his dreams come true. And parts of that garage keep showing up in strange ways even now. People who have collected some of Paul's cars sometimes find small things that link them to his legacy. One Skyline owner said that he found a faded sticky note hidden in the glove box. It had handwritten tuning suggestions and a short list on it. People thought it was written by Paul himself. When another fan bought a toolbox, they found a small stack of offset photos of Paul laughing and being himself in the bottom drawer. The photos were from the set of Fast and Furious. These discoveries, which may not seem important, say a lot. They give Paul's story more depth than what you can find on IMDb or in the movie's box office numbers. They show a man who kept things simple, did everything with heart, and never lost sight of what was most important: life, people, and his passions. People will always remember Paul Walker's garage, not just for the metal and rubber it held, but also for the way it showed his soul. It wasn't just a place where fast cars lived, it was also a place where his memorial was slowly built up. It still moves people, brings people together, and gives back, just like the man who filled it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Click on the next video popping up on your screen for more amazing content.